Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to a deck tech. Slightly different type of deck tech. This is not a highly competitive deck, although it is tier 2, roughly. Tier 2, maybe tier 3, probably around tier 2. I've just named this deck Face Hunter because that's basically what it is. It's a mono corruption deck that is very aggressive, and then goes face, with Word of Pain and Succubus. That's the whole deck. Yeah, it is basically Face Hunter, which I find fairly amusing. It's also a mono corruption deck, and I haven't covered a mono corruption deck ever. I don't think I have. I've covered Lightning Zombies was the last corruption deck I've done, and I don't think I've ever covered a mono corruption deck, so I figured I might as well. Now, this particular build is not optimized, but it is reasonably solid, so it's a good starting point if you want to try out this deck and go from there. First things first, obviously if you're playing Corruption, you need the Dread Knight card back. Anyway, on to the hero, Advanced Pharos. Basically, reanimating Succubus is why he's in the deck. That's more or less the only valid target. You can reanimate Mesmerizing Spirit, but that doesn't often come up. So, yeah, basically you play Succubus, and then you attack with it, they trade, you resurrect it. That's why Nepharos is in the deck. It may not seem like much of a reason, but the other two corruption heroes are awful in this archetype. Basic Nepharos wouldn't do that much because you're removing his stuff, and if he blocks, you kind of want them to trade anyway. And also, Basic Nepharos is used for trading, whereas this deck doesn't do much trading. And then Enoch sacrifices your creatures, but there isn't much support for that in this deck, so it's just not worth the cost. Alright, we'll go over the early game creatures, and then we'll go over the removal, and then the late game. So the early game creatures, we've got Zombie Legionnaire is the only 1-drop. Legionnaire is arguably the best 1-drop in the game. 2/2 for 1, has a drawback and 1 speed, but that's better than the old Lizard, which could only hit the face. This can at least attack other, 1-speed creatures, which are few and far between, but they do exist. So it's basically an old Lizard. 2/2 for 1 mana, can only attack face, that is fine. That's all you need out of a 1-drop in this kind of deck. Absolute perfect fit. 2/2 drops, or I guess 8. Running Remains as a 4-of. Yes, basically we need a 2-drop. Guaranteed. So Running Remains really does help in that regard. It's not as good as the other 2-drop, which we'll get to, but it still serves its purpose. Now, Running Remains is a 3/3, but it degrades over time, so usually it'll get in 3 damage, maybe 5, and then just die, or it'll get 3 and then trade. That's generally how it goes. But the fact that you can get damage in the first place is good. It also trades up when you need to kind of stabilize a little bit. And the card in general is pretty decent. It's not good, but it's good enough. It gets some damage in. If they're greedy, they'll let it through a few times, so you get 5, maybe even 6 damage out of this thing. And it kills itself, but that's 5 damage. That's a quarter of their life total, which is really, really big, because you'll be burning them into oblivion later on in the game. Now, the other 2-drop is Infected Survivor. Main reason he's in the deck, well, there's 2. First of all, Flesh Sculptor, and second of all, Consume Spirit. Now, Consume Spirit with Infected Survivor is just disgusting, because you can kill one elf and attack the other one, or you can just attack anything, because 3 speed is pretty much the highest in the average game. The only thing that's faster than it is Elf Scout, and technically Lightning Elemental, but no one plays that, so basically just Elf Scout. So you can attack more or less anything with Infected Survivor. You can also block more or less anything, and if you have Flesh Sculptor on the board, you get 2 zombies, so you convert 1 attack into 4, which is a really, really good effect, and is one of the quite severely underestimated effects that Corruption has access to. So onto the 3-drops. There are 3 3-drops. Insatiable Ghoul is only a 3-of, not a 4-of. Main reason for this is multiples can be a bit clunky. Insatiable Ghoul is the heavy hitter of the deck. 3/4 doesn't die to burn, more or less ever. All of the red burn does 3, Fire Blast, Fireball, and Word of Fire, because Word of Fire doesn't really go up to 4 levels, so it's basically just everything does 3. So that's really awkward with Ghoul. The drawback is kind of annoying, but you'll often have creatures die on turn 1 and turn 2, so this is one of the only decks that can get Ghoul to attack on turn 4. Although, if you went second, unless you had a zombie on turn 1, you probably can't attack with it on turn 3. It's still a very, very big body, and is pretty underestimated, as with a lot of stuff in Corruption. It's very hard to deal with, and I actually really enjoyed playing with Ghoul and Zombie Giant, although this deck does not have the latter. When I was playing Lightning Zombies, they were actually pretty good creatures, and this is just an extra stabilize for the mid game that lets you get some extra damage in. Then we've got our value 3-drops. We'll go with Spirit first. Spirit is the guaranteed 2-for-1. It will usually trade and make them discard, or you can leave it on the back row and it can block, or because it has flying, you can play it and then you can attack with it, and there's nothing I can do about it without removal. Now, this is something which a lot of people underestimate with flying, is the fact that they can't interact with it, so you can just attack. And with Consume Spirit, means that when you're attacking, your creature is much, much stronger. So that's actually quite a relevant distinction. As I said with the hero power earlier, you can reanimate this in longer games, although generally it doesn't come down to Mesmerizing Spirit sort of trading over and over and over again. Flesh Sculptor, the last of the 3-drops. Now, Flesh Sculptor is one of the best cards in the game, so is Mesmerizing Spirit. And it just stops your opponent from removing damage from your board. It's just really, really big, because this deck is all about going face most of the time, which means that if your opponent wants to board wipe you and you have a Flesh Sculptor on the board, or 2, that gets disgusting, by the way, you'll probably only lose 3-4 damage total. I mean, Ghoul becomes 2, Infected Survivor becomes 4, Flesh Sculptor doesn't make a zombie, so you'll probably lose 2 to maybe 3 damage from your board, and then just hit him. And so Cataclysm is nowhere near as effective against this deck. Same goes for Fire Blast. Now, besides that, as I said, when you get 2, you start multiplying the attack numbers, which just gets insane. And with Infected Survivor and Consume, you can do some sort of trading and then encourage them to attack the Survivor, because otherwise they might get blown out by a Consume, and then your Flesh Sculptor reanimates it into a zombie. So it's a very, very powerful effect, and should not be underestimated. Now, onto the removal spells. Just 2. We've got Noxious Fumes for small creatures, and also lets you get quite nice attacks in, as you can fume something and then attack it with Survivor. It's one of the ways of dealing with library guards. And the other removal spell is Consume Spirit, which may as well also be a burn spell. Being able to use this for 3 or 4, this deck does go up to 4, even 5 levels in some cases, because you have Consume Spirit and Word of Pain, which both scale off your level. You can very consistently do things like kill their library guards and hit them in the face for 8. This does happen, and I have had situations where I've had a Succubus on the board and 5 levels and consumed his blocker and then Word of Pain and hit him in the face for 12. Like, the amount of burst damage in this deck is just ludicrous, and this, along with Word of Pain, is the reason for it. Massive swing effect. It does have a problem, which is if you don't have a creature, it's not very consistent, and if they only have one creature and you don't have a creature, you literally can't play it. However, this deck has some very, very sticky threats, and usually you'll have something to drain onto. Now, on to the late game. We have Succubus. Yes, this is the late game, is turn 6. So on turn 6, you play your Succubus, you drain 3, and you have a 3-3 that can keep attacking. And if they block it and trade, sure, you get a trade and you reanimate it with your hero power. You only gain 1 life because you lose 2 from the hero power, but they lose another 3 life, and you're playing 4. So do the maths on that. You don't need to do that much damage, just kill them out with Succubus. And then you have Word of Pain, which is basically Succubus copies like 5 through 8. But Word of Pain has a couple advantages and disadvantages. 2 disadvantages. First of all, it's not a creature, so it has less impact total on 1 card, and 2, you can't reanimate it with your hero power, obviously. However, it does have some advantages. First of all, it draws a card, which means you can chain these, which is quite important. And second of all, it hits really hard late game. Like, you can get 5 damage out of this. The most I've ever done with Word of Pain was 7. And no, it wasn't a combo deck. That was a zombies deck, but it was a weird game. I basically went up to 7 corruption levels and just with 2 mana and just get Word of Paining for the win. You can do that. Doesn't come up much. Usually the maximum this deck needs to go up to is about 5. But the fact that you can scale up means you can play around healing, because then you've got, if you only start playing Word of Pain when you have 5 levels, then 4 Word of Pain, that's 20 damage right there over a long game, and Succubus is another 12, not accounting for reanimation, so you can kind of see where all the damage comes from. As for shrines, 21 shrines as a standard for my decks, and 2 Sanctum for late game control, just to get through some of their blockers, and Haunted Cemetery to keep the board snowballing as you remove things, basically turning Fumes into 2 mana -2 summon a zombie. They're both good shrines. It's one of the advantages of playing Mono Corruption is you have 2 skill shrines, whereas most mono decks don't. I mean, Blue only has 1 good shrine, Rage only has 1, depending if you're playing Shamans, maybe you can play the Fireball land as well. The problem with that is you might discard your Shaman, so you can't really do it there. You can't do it with Order either, because they don't work together. Dominion is the closest, I think, to Corruption in terms of that, which is the sacrifice and also the weakness counter, but there aren't many targets for sacrifice. So basically, Corruption is pretty much the only monocolor deck that gets to play both shrines. And debatably green every so often when they're playing some weird bounce deck. So, yeah, now, because this deck goes to so many levels, having 2 of each is fine, because you play 1, and then the second one you draw, you just make into a level. I didn't want to play 3 of 1, 1 of the other, or 3-2, just because I don't feel too comfortable with Shrine variants sometimes in this kind of deck, because there's not much draw power at all. It's basically just Word of Pain. That and Sanctum is usually more powerful than Haunted Cemetery, but not so much in this deck, because you have other ways of dealing with single threats like Consume Spirit. So anyway, we're going to try and get a few games, and then we will go from there. We're going to try and get 2 games on this particular video. Now, as for up-and-coming stuff, first of all, I am not streaming today or tomorrow. Yeah, I have exams, basically. Yeah, so I'm in my exam period right now, which means that I have another one on Friday, so I can't really afford the time to stream at a certain time of day because I'm just too tired. But anyway, besides that, I have been trying out Duelist recently. A couple of people in Spellweaver community have been, so I'm probably going to make a first impressions video of that once I have a couple more days in, so that I can kind of give a good impression of it. So anyway, this hand is terrible. We're just going to mulligan this. Yeah, no shrines, just not keepable. Now we're against Soldiers, which is pretty bad. Matchup-wise, Soldiers is not good. Then there's... Let's see, so we have Soldiers, then we've got Elves, which is about 50-50, depending on the draw, and Red is about 50-50 as well. Most matchups of this are between 50 and 60% in this deck's favor, and it's fairly coin flippy, depending on skill, obviously. Now, I think we spark out the Running Remains, because then I can Fumes and go from there. Yeah, I think we get the Running Remains out to get some damage in. We've got 2 Word of Pain, that's a lot of burn there. Flesh Sculptor, timing it for when the Running Remains will most likely die, which will be turn 3 probably. Alright, so it looks like a standard Soldiers build. Now, if he goes for like the Dwarf, I think I just Fumes it and attack. Oh, that's interesting. I think I just attack here and see what he does. Ah, okay, he's not, he is not concerned. Get the Haunted Cemetery going, attack, see what he does. And then I'll just Fumes one of the Spearmen. That's just to be mana efficient, because I know next turn I've got Flesh Sculptor and he might leave this back and then just trade. I think the game plan for this is going to be get a whole bunch of levels up and Word of Pain every turn. That sounds decent. That could be irritating. Yeah, that's problematic. How do we deal with that? So I think the play here is actually just Flesh Sculptor and then pass. So if he attacks, I get a zombie that I can attack him back. Soldiers is pretty rough for this deck in general. Oh, that's annoying. Yeah, they have Mind Extortion, and they also have a whole bunch of small stuff, which is difficult for me to deal with. So the matchup itself is one of the worst for the deck, and is one of the main issues with this particular deck. Militia? Alright, so is he going to use this to trade? I mean, not to trade, to just kill it. Yeah, yes. Alright, so we do have the Infected Survivor. Infected Survivor is a very, very good play with Flesh Sculptor. And the Fumes. Alright, so let's see what he does here. Yeah, I didn't expect him to trade there. So we're just going to kill this while I can. I'm expecting a... what's it called? Monster Tactician here. So I'm going to leave this on the back row, I think. And go from there. We're going to have to top deck into a lot of burn. Like, I need a Succubus in the next 2 turns, basically. Ah, that's bad. Alright, so now this is going to die over time. Alright, I'm just going to send back the Spirit and burn for 3, I think. Then what? So I think I have to sack this off regardless, because I need the attack power. Yeah, otherwise he just kill that and then just attack, and I'm not in a good spot. Whereas here, at least he can't deal with my entire board at once. Never mind. Now he can, so he can just attack in if he wants to. Or he can just go face. That may actually be a more effective solution. Leave this back and go face with the rest. Yeesh. Yeah, he's going for efficiency. Oh, apparently not. He's just going for pure defense. I don't think that's the correct way of doing it. Yeah, I don't think the way he did it was correct, because I can use things like consume. And now he has to block with something else, because that's too much damage to take. Oh, that's a mistake. That is way too much damage to take from a burn deck. Let's see, how much damage has he got? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So he has 11 damage, but I'm pretty close to lethal. Like, he has to be careful here. He has to keep clearing, otherwise I'm just going to kill him. Alright, and we're back. Just dealing with background sound. Sorry about that. Alright, so now we get the Succubus drain. That puts him at 4. Do I want the consume? No, because he'll just leave it back anyway. I need Word of Pain. Or get consume back. I need Word of Pain. I need Word of Pain, basically. Otherwise I can't win. So I can block this, which reduces a lot of damage. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's not enough. Let's see what he does. I could, in theory, get lethal out of nowhere. Yeah, we're not gonna block her. Ghoul is not the most useful card here. Didn't get anything, that's bad. There's no way of me killing him here. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out if there's any way of me, like, surviving. No. Yeah, I needed Word of Pain, basically. That was the only card I could draw. That was a lot closer than I was expecting from that matchup, but yeah, it's a hard matchup. It really is. I'm not expecting to win that particular matchup. Lots of small things, and I can't really get past any of them. Although, he shouldn't have taken the 5 from the zombie earlier in the game. That made that game way too close. If I had Word of Pain, I would have won. Well, I needed Word of Pain and then Divine Offering as well. But, yeah, that would have been enough. Actually, even without the Corruption Shrine, I think it would have been enough. Because I could just sack the Succubus. Nah, you could trade blockers. If you made the mistake of letting me trade the Succubus, I could have won with just Word of Pain. This hand is good. I've got 1, 2, and then 3. Plus Burn. That's a good hand. Playing against basically the Spina, this could be Implants, could be, well, I know, Chemi, I know, so it's not a starter deck. Could be a Wisdom Dominion control deck, playing like, I don't know, just a lot of mana ramp. Start with the Rotting Remains, because I don't want to get assassinated. Not that either could really be assassinated anyway, but yeah. Also works better against Assassin. Susan. Yeah, there's the trade. I don't want to reveal I've got Infected Survivor because then I'll get blown out. Let's get rid of a Spirit because I do not need 2. Because we're going to go Spirit, Sculptor. I need something else before I can play Succubus. I need 2 more things. Discard a Succubus. I should have gone for a level there. That was a mistake. Alright. So this turn I can go for a Flesh Sculptor plus Zombify if he plays something I can trade with. Dominion Corruption. So this is probably playing Necromantic Cult, because then you can make use of the mana. I mean, the problem with Necrocult is it takes a huge amount of mana to get to work. So if you're just playing with something that doesn't require a whole bunch of mana, and apparently I've had that window capture up the entire time. That's what I use for chat, in case anyone's wondering. That black square that just disappeared randomly. That's what I use for chat when I'm streaming. So yeah, I am going to be covering a little bit of Duelist. We'll have to see how much. I need the second Succubus. Probably I'll do 2 or 3 streams on it, and then I'll do a first impressions video and go from there. Like, the game's pretty good, although it does have a few faults with it. Now, this could get helmed, which would be devastating, because you could just helm it and then trade. Still can't play Succubus. Still can't. I need one more play. Alright, so he gets to trade. He's probably playing this with Restless Tombs to get a lot of draw power. It's a decent idea. Like, Dominion Corruption has always been a deck idea that everyone tries to get to work at some point. It just kind of never does. It's very frustrating. And we get the Ghoul that I can't play. He might think I'm bluffing Fumes. It's always worth going for that. I'm playing the Ghoul just to buy me time. It's always worth going for the attack there, because this zombie will do nothing anyway, so I may as well bluff the Fumes. Because if I have Fumes, it gets rid of his mutant, and yeah, it's annoying. And if I Fumes first, I keep my zombie guaranteed, but he's not going to block it. So if my aim is to try and remove the mutant, then I can just bluff. And it works. Alright, so he's trading off. He's just trying to make sure that I don't have any consumed spirit targets, I think. Because otherwise I can do an insane amount of damage. Although, if I get a shrine, I can just start playing a whole bunch of succubi and go from there. And that could be really strong. Oh, Word of Pain. I don't want to get rid of this. I mean, I have to get rid of the Word of Pain because he's playing a Dominion deck, which means he has Mind Extortion, which can't kill a Succubus, but can get rid of a Word of Pain. You can get rid of a Word of Pain super easily. But yeah, I've had to discard a Succubus and send away a Word of Pain, which is just rough. Now I want the Word of Pain because I want to trade and reanimate, but... I mean, I do have 3 others in the deck, plus 1 Succubus. Yeah, I've got 1 Succubus and 3 Word of Pain left in the deck, since the 4th one's at the bottom. There's the Assassinate. I mean, I'm not worried about racing, because all of my burn gains life. So, racing him shouldn't be too much of an issue. Oh, there's another Word of Pain gone. We're just going to have to Divine Offering every single turn to try and get them back to the top. I only need 2. Like, I do not need the full set. In fact, he's just going to make me sack it. If Succubus lives for a turn, I can get double effect out of it, but they're not living for a turn. They're getting sacked over and over and over again. He shouldn't sack this for a card, because he wants to get damage in at the moment. There's the Fumes. So I'm going to use the Fumes now, just to try and get some board presence. Maybe I should Divine Offering there. Try and get a sack land. Because then I can maybe get rid of this mutant. Yeah, I need Word of Pain, basically. I need a miracle to win this game, more or less. I need mutant. I mean, not mutant. I need Word of Pain and Succubus. Actually, if I get a sack shrine, I can kill this. Oh, Word of Pain. There's the last one on the bottom. That can block. That's not good enough, but yeah. I need a sack land. If I had Sanctum of the Void, I would have been able to kill that a long time ago. It was the only creature on his board for like 4 turns. I mean, it starts as a 2/2. This has been on the board for 5 turns now. Because I mean, it's a 2/2, but it starts as a 3/3 because you play it and it gets a counter immediately. We're at that point of the game. I'm dead to Succubus if he has it. I don't think he plays Succubus. No, he doesn't. Alright. I have 1 top deck. Yeah, I needed Sanctum of the Void earlier, and then I would have been able to maybe win the game. But yeah, this deck is very coin flippy. It depends a lot on your draws. Had too slow of a hand, so I couldn't apply much pressure, and that was my downfall in that game. But anyway, thank you all for watching my deck tech on, well, Face Hunter, basically. But as for now, this has been Jotto. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, put it in the comment section below. But as for now, this is Jotto signing off.